You ever notice how silence speaks louder than words? When someone doesn't call or message you for a long time, your mind starts running wild. You question yourself. Did I do something wrong? Did I say too much? Or maybe I wasn't enough? But the truth is, their silence isn't always about you. Sometimes it's a test of your patience, sometimes it's a reflection of where they are in life, and sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. So let's break down what it really means when someone pulls away and why you don't need to chase what isn't choosing you. When someone doesn't call or message you for a long time, the first thing you've got to understand is this: silence is never neutral. It always says something. Silence has its own language, and if you listen carefully, you'll realize it reveals far more than words ever could. You see, people can tell you one thing, they can promise you the world, they can say they care, but at the end of the day, the strongest truth always comes from what they do, or in this case, what they don't do. When someone consistently chooses not to reach out, they're making their priorities loud and clear, and as hard as that can be to accept, it's actually a gift because it saves you from the confusion of mixed signals. The thing about silence is, it strips away excuses. A person who values you will not go weeks or months without checking in. It doesn't take grand gestures, long phone calls, or perfectly written paragraphs to show up in someone's life. Sometimes it's just a quick message, a simple thinking of you, or a call that lasts only a few minutes. When someone really cares, they find a way, not an excuse. And if that effort isn't there, their silence is doing you a favor. It's cutting through the noise of promises that were never going to be kept anyway. Now, I know how tempting it is to rationalize. We tell ourselves they must be busy. They're probably overwhelmed. Maybe their phone broke. Maybe they're just not good at communication. Maybe. And while yes, life gets busy and people do go through seasons where they pull back, someone who sees you as a priority won't let silence stretch into neglect. If it matters, they will reach out. If it matters, they will make sure you don't have to wonder where you stand. Think about it like this. If someone told you they were starving, but when they stood in front of a table full of food, they never picked up a plate, would you believe them? Or would you realize their actions contradict their words? It's the same with attention and care. People show you exactly where you rank in their life by the consistency of their presence. You never have to beg someone who truly values you to make time. They already will. And here's the hard truth. Sometimes we don't want to hear the message that silence is giving us. Because if we accept it, it means we have to let go of the picture we painted of that relationship, that friendship, or that connection. It means we have to stop hoping that maybe tomorrow they'll call, maybe next week they'll show up, maybe next month things will be different. But dragging yourself through endless waiting is exhausting. Silence forces you to see the truth you may not want, but it's always the truth you need. Instead of fighting it, lean into it. If someone's silence is telling you that you are not their priority, then take it as clarity and choose yourself. Don't chase, don't beg, don't keep knocking on a door that someone has locked from the inside. That's not rejection, it's redirection. It's life giving you the opportunity to invest in people who will never let days or weeks go by without making you feel seen, heard, and valued. Silence isn't just the absence of words, it's the presence of truth. When someone doesn't call or message you for a long time, the first thought that usually creeps in is, maybe I'm not worth it. Maybe I'm not enough. And that's where we make the biggest mistake, tying our value to someone else's effort or lack of it. Their absence starts to feel like a reflection of our worth. But let me tell you this straight, your value doesn't rise when someone pays attention to you, and it doesn't fall when they go silent. Your value is steady, permanent, unshakable. Too often, we let someone's inconsistency write the story of how we see ourselves. They don't call, so we start believing maybe we're forgettable. They don't message, so we wonder if we're not interesting enough. Their silence starts echoing louder than our own self-belief, And suddenly, we're questioning things that should never be questioned. You don't lose your worth because someone else can't recognize it. Think about gold. Whether it's sitting in a showcase, buried underground, or tucked away in a drawer, gold doesn't lose its value. It doesn't stop being gold because nobody is looking at it. And that's you. You don't stop being valuable because someone fails to acknowledge it. The truth is, people's actions are often more about them than they are about you. Maybe they're distracted, maybe they're careless, maybe they're battling their own insecurities, or maybe they simply don't have the capacity to give what you deserve. But none of those reasons have the power to reduce who you are. Someone failing to see your worth doesn't mean it isn't there. It only means they weren't capable of recognizing it. And here's something important. If you spend all your energy trying to prove your value to someone who keeps overlooking it, you'll drain yourself in ways you were never meant to. You don't have to convince anyone that you're worthy of love, respect, or consistency. You don't have to beg for what should be freely given. Your presence is already enough. The right people will never need reminding. They will see you, appreciate you, and meet you with the same energy you give. Think about how many times you've overextended yourself for people who didn't return even a fraction of that energy. You gave them patience, you gave them grace, you gave them every chance to show up, and yet they stayed silent, and still you wondered, what's wrong with me? But the real question is, why am I doubting myself because of someone else's choices? That's like blaming the sun for someone closing their blinds. The light is still shining, it's just not being let in. This is why you cannot let silence convince you that you're unworthy, because silence is not a mirror of your identity. It's just the gap between what you deserve and what someone is willing to give. Don't ever hand over the keys of your self-worth to another person's hands. If they want to go quiet, let them. If they want to drift away, let them. But don't you dare let their absence make you forget who you are. Because at the end of the day, whether someone calls, messages, or disappears completely, your value remains untouched. When someone doesn't call or message you for a long time, that space they create isn't always a punishment. It can be a mirror. It forces you to stop and ask yourself some uncomfortable questions you might have been avoiding. Because when someone pulls away, when their voice and presence fade out of your daily life, what's left is the silence, and in that silence you get to see your own patterns more clearly. You get to notice how much of your energy was going into holding on to someone who may not have been holding on to you with the same strength. It's easy to get caught up in the rhythm of reaching out, of waiting for replies, of holding on to the smallest signs of care like their lifelines. But when the calls stop, when the messages dry up, you're left with the reality of how much effort was one-sided. And sometimes that reality hurts more than the silence itself, because it shows you the imbalance you were willing to accept just to feel connected. It reveals how much of yourself you were pouring into someone else without asking if they were pouring back into you. That distance, as painful as it feels in the moment, is actually clarity. It's the universe putting a pause on the noise so you can see the truth of the relationship. You start asking, why am I always the one chasing? Why do I feel anxious when I don't hear from them? Why does their silence make me feel so small? Those questions aren't meant to break you. They're meant to wake you up. They're meant to show you where you've been giving too much and receiving too little. Sometimes the space shows you something even deeper. It shows you how much you've attached your sense of worth to another person's attention. How much your mood depends on whether or not they reply. How often you check your phone just hoping to see their name pop up. That reflection can be hard to face, but it's necessary. Because when you see it, you realize you've been measuring your happiness by someone else's presence instead of anchoring it in your own life, your own growth, your own joy. And here's the shift. Once you see it, you can change it. You can use that space as a reset button. Instead of filling the silence with overthinking and self-blame, You can fill it with self-awareness. You can ask yourself, what do I need? What do I deserve? What kind of energy am I expecting from people in my life? Those are the kinds of questions that help you step into your own power instead of staying trapped in someone else's absence. The truth is, distance isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's revelation. Sometimes it's the clearest sign you'll ever get about the true state of a relationship. Because consistency doesn't vanish overnight. It only reveals what was always fragile underneath. And if someone's silence gives you the chance to finally see that, then maybe it's not such a bad thing after all. So when someone doesn't call or message you for a long time, don't just see it as a loss. See it as a mirror. Because in that reflection, you'll discover not just who they are, but who you've been and who you no longer want to be. When someone doesn't call or message you for a long time and then suddenly shows up like nothing happened, it's easy to feel a rush of relief. You convince yourself their silence didn't mean much, that maybe they were just busy, that maybe life got in the way. And because you miss them, because a part of you longed for their attention, you welcome them back with open arms. But here's the problem. We often romanticize inconsistency. We start seeing crumbs of effort as a full meal. We tell ourselves that little bit of attention is proof they care, when in reality it's only proof of convenience. Consistency is the foundation of real connection. You can't build trust on moments that come and go like the wind. You can't build love on gaps filled with silence and then patched with sudden reappearances. Yet so many of us cling to those moments of return because they feel good in the moment, because they soothe the ache that was created in their absence. It feels easier to accept broken patterns than to face the truth that someone may not be showing up with the kind of heart we deserve. The danger of romanticizing inconsistency is that it trains you to accept less. It makes you lower your standards without even realizing it. You start believing that it's normal for someone to vanish and reappear, normal for you to wait in uncertainty, normal for you to live in a cycle of highs and lows depending on when they decide to give you their time. That's not normal. That's emotional exhaustion disguised as love. And the longer you stay in it, the more it chips away at your self-respect. Ask yourself this: if someone truly valued you, would they keep disappearing? Would they leave you questioning your worth, your place in their life, your importance to them? Real care doesn't operate on convenience. It doesn't wait for the perfect timing or show up only when it's easy. Real care is steady. It doesn't vanish when things get busy. It doesn't need constant excuses. It shows up because it wants to, not because it feels guilty or bored or needs something from you. And sometimes we mistake inconsistency for passion. We confuse the roller coaster of emotions with intensity. We think the ups and downs mean there's something powerful there, something worth holding on to. But love isn't meant to drain you. Care isn't meant to confuse you. The right kind of presence doesn't make you wonder. It makes you certain. The truth is, people who are inconsistent aren't always bad people. Sometimes they're just not ready, not capable, or not invested in the same way you are. But no matter the reason, you don't have to normalize their absence as part of your story. You don't have to celebrate their sudden return like it erases all the silence that came before it, because it doesn't. Silence leaves marks, and every reappearance doesn't undo the damage. It just resets the cycle. So when you find yourself tempted to romanticize the inconsistency of someone's attention, remind yourself of this: the right person won't keep you guessing. They won't leave you stranded in silence and then expect applause for finally showing up. They won't make you doubt if you matter. They'll be there consistently because to them, your presence is not an option. It's a priority. Don't confuse inconsistency with love. When someone doesn't call or message you for a long time, you've got to stop and ask yourself a simple question: why am I carrying all the weight of this connection by myself? Relationships are not meant to be one-sided. They're not supposed to feel like you're always chasing, always reaching, always the one checking in just to keep the bond alive. That's not love, that's labor. And the truth is, real connection flows both ways. Think about a dance. If one person keeps stepping forward and the other person never moves, you don't have a dance, you have a chase. And chasing gets exhausting. You start to notice your energy dropping, your joy fading, your confidence shrinking, because all the effort is coming from you. You're the one initiating every conversation, keeping the spark alive, carrying both sides of the relationship on your back while the other person coasts. That imbalance doesn't just hurt, it drains you. The danger is when you're the one giving and giving, you start normalizing the imbalance. You tell yourself, that's just how they are. They're not good at reaching out. They're busy. They've got a lot going on. You create reasons to excuse the fact that you're doing all the work because admitting the truth feels too heavy. But deep down, you feel it. You feel the loneliness in the middle of a relationship. You feel the ache of wanting them to show the same effort without having to ask. And here's the thing, when energy doesn't flow both ways, resentment always grows. It may not show up overnight, but it builds quietly. Every time you send a message and get no response, every time you wait for a call that never comes, every time you hope they'll show initiative but they don't, a little piece of you gets tired. And when enough of those pieces pile up, you're left questioning why you've been settling for so little. Healthy connections don't make you beg. They don't make you question your worth. They don't leave you feeling like you're too much for asking for basic consistency. They thrive on reciprocity, on the natural give, and take that makes both people feel wanted, chosen, and secure. When someone cares, you don't have to drag effort out of them. It's already there because they want to show up, not because you guilted them into it. It's not about keeping score. It's not about saying, I called twice, so you should have called me twice. No, it's about the balance, the mutual investment, the feeling that you're not in this alone. Even small gestures, an unexpected text, a quick check-in, a call just to hear your voice can make all the difference because it tells you they're just as invested as you are. And when you realize the energy isn't flowing both ways, that's your signal. That's your clarity. Because love shouldn't feel like begging for scraps. It should feel like a steady rhythm where both of you are stepping forward, carrying the connection together, building something you don't have to second guess. So if you're the only one keeping the bond alive, don't mistake that for strength. That's not love at its best. That's love on life support. The best kind of love doesn't weigh you down. It lifts you higher because both hearts are beating in the same rhythm. Energy should always flow both ways. When someone doesn't call or message you for a long time, the silence can feel like rejection. It can feel like you've been forgotten, overlooked, or pushed aside. But sometimes that silence is not rejection at all. It's freedom. It's life clearing out space that you didn't even realize needed to be cleared. Because if someone can so easily step back and leave you hanging, maybe they weren't meant to hold such a central place in your life to begin with. And while it stings in the moment, that distance often becomes the very thing that saves you. We spend so much time trying to hold on to people who let go of us without hesitation. We replay memories, reread old messages, and cling to what used to be just to avoid facing what is. But what if silence is actually the gift you didn't know you needed? What if the absence of their voice is the space you need to finally hear your own? Sometimes no calls and no messages force you back into yourself, into your own growth, into rediscovering the parts of you that got lost while you were busy chasing their presence. Freedom doesn't always come with fanfare. It doesn't always arrive with a clear explanation or a goodbye. Sometimes it shows up quietly in unanswered texts and in phone calls that never come. And while that kind of freedom doesn't feel like a blessing at first, with time you begin to see how it protects you. It protects you from pouring yourself into someone who couldn't pour back. It protects you from cycles of inconsistency, confusion, and disappointment. It protects you from mistaking their convenience for love. The silence gives you space to heal. It gives you room to step out of waiting mode and step into living mode. It forces you to stop depending on the buzz of your phone for validation and instead start building a life where your joy isn't tied to whether or not someone else remembers you exist. That's the kind of freedom that may not feel good at first, but it grows into strength. And here's the beautiful part: once you stop fearing silence, you start embracing peace. Because not every absence is a loss. Not every unanswered call is something to mourn. Sometimes the silence is making room for better conversations, healthier relationships, and people who won't let weeks or months go by without making you feel seen. It's creating a clearing for new connections that won't require you to doubt your worth or question your place. The truth is, silence doesn't take away your value. It takes away the distractions that kept you from seeing it. It gives you the freedom to stop begging for attention and start demanding alignment. To stop shrinking yourself for someone's convenience and start expanding into who you were always meant to be. So the next time someone doesn't call or message you for a long time, don't just see it as them pulling away. See it as life pulling you forward. Because sometimes silence isn't emptiness at all. It's the first sound of freedom.